There it is. Benicio Del Toro, you star in Sicario as Alejandro, who's a mysterious operative in the drug war on the Mexican-American border. So what appealed to you about playing this role when you first read the script?
You know, the script was number one, it was original, and in not only in its content, but also in its structure. The film, the structure, how it follows one character, and then at the end it just changes POV and goes into another character. So that was really interesting, but perhaps dangerous, maybe. And then the other thing was the director. Meeting with Denis Villeneuve, his energy, his enthusiasm, his vision and the sensibility to the subject was interesting. It was good for me. And then the cast, Emily Blunt and Josh Brolin, two of my favorite actors. I've worked with them before. So that was another incentive. And last but not least, Roger Deakins, the director of photography. So I've been a fan of his work for a long time. And, that was another incentive to be in a movie shot by him.
You mentioned that the change of POV, it sort of felt dangerous. Did it feel like sort of a leap of faith, or were you wondering, is it gonna can you pull this off? Can you not pull this off? That sort of thing.
Oh yeah, all the way to the end of the filming. I didn't know that the film was whether it was going to work or not. Even when we finished shooting it, it wasn't until I saw it put together that I felt it did, and I think I think we got to give credit to Denis Villeneuve for really trusting that, and I'm making it work with the editor and the sound design and the music, making it work. And I thought when I saw the film, I was surprised at how well it worked, because it's unorthodox. The whole approach to telling this story.
Yeah, and the director, Denis Villeneuve, has done very kinds of films in the past, and this is also a bit different from the films he's done before. Had you been familiar with his previous work before taking on this role?
Yeah, well, I've seen two of his films. I saw Incendies, and Prisoners, and you could tell is the real deal, number one, and everyone around me, my agent, my manager, and even some friends that knew that I was going to meet with him, they were all really pushing me, to meet him, and they really consider him like the real deal of filmmakers,
And having seen those previous films of his, did you have any sort of expectations about what it would be like to work with him actually on set, or what that experience would be like?
I've been lucky enough to work with some great directors, some of the best, around. So I was just hoping that we will be able to collaborate together, and that's exactly what happened. We collaborated. So I was hoping that we would collaborate and work together to discover and build the character, and that's what happened. So was I afraid? No, I was hopeful, but quickly, the process was good. The process of collaborating, but not only with me. I know he did it with Josh, and he did it with Emily as well.
In a film, with this kind of action and tension and a bit unorthodox, were there any scenes that you felt were especially challenging or complicated to shoot?
you know, perhaps you know, one of was one of those sequences that was scary to shoot was being inside the vans as we go into Mexico to, and those vans were moving maybe about 60 or 70 miles an hour this close, and being sitting inside one of those vans with a stunt driver driving them was kind of scary. And we were driving in Mexico City as well too, so it's not like they know the roads really well, these stunt drivers, but that was kind of like a little scary, you know. I think that maybe in one of those scenes, maybe if you look, I might have the seatbelt on, you know. You don't want to go flying through but those drives were really intense, you know, sitting inside those cars, and there's 5 cars in front of you, so one makes a mistake, you know, everybody's just gonna go, bam. They were a little scary.
And throughout your career, you have done, some action, a lot of action-packed films, and you've also done, these very intimate, character-driven films. And this is sort of, a little bit of both at points. Are both kinds of projects satisfying to you in different ways as an actor, or do you prefer one kind or the other?
No, I think that number one, you want to make movies with a good team, people that you admire, because you don't make movies alone. So that's really important to be in a movie with people that you admire, either actors that you admire, a filmmaker that you admire, and hopefully with a good script. And every as an actor, every character is going to be interesting one way or the other. You can make it interesting to an extent. And I just there, whether it's a character, there might be a difference, and but it's not one is easier than the other one, or not one is like I would rather do. Like whether you talk about a character that really lived or a character that is fiction, there might be a different approach, but they're both complicated. I wouldn't say one is easier than the other. And I wish I could say that there's some movies that are easier than others, because then I would do the easier ones. But they're not. Every movie's different. Every movie's different. Maybe that's what makes it exciting still. Because I've been doing movies now for some time, but I couldn't say two experiences were the same. They're all unique.
You mentioned, Josh Brolin and Emily Blunt, and you mentioned having worked with them before. Did that make that sort of dynamic a little bit easier to develop between the three of you as actors and characters, having had experience with them before?
Yeah. I think that usually you want to create, or at least when I work with actors or actresses, you want to create a foundation of trust, and that can take time. That can take some time if you don't know each other. But with Emily and Josh, I've worked with both of them, so that was already established. So, and usually, to be honest, is like when you work with actors that you admire, that you like, I would be lying to you if I didn't say that there is a sense in me, and I'm sure of trying to give a good impression. So you work a little bit harder. You get to the set a little bit earlier. You're not late. If you want to be on your toes because you admire them for what they do, and hopefully it's the same way for them. But it happens when you work with actors that you like and that you admire their work. They just elevate your game. So that's and these two actors, Emily Blunt and Josh Brolin, are two actors that I personally want to impress. Make sure they don't that I don't mess up the lines for them.
Speaking of familiarity, you have appeared in a few other films that have tackled the subject of the drug world, like Escobar, Paradise Lost, Savages, and of course Traffic, which, you won the Oscar for. And of course, those are, very different films, even though they all in some way, take place in that same kind of criminal world. How would you say, Sicario is unique in its approach to that theme?
Um, Uh, well, I think Sicario more than the others, perhaps a little bit closer to Paradise Lost. I think Sicario it really is a thriller. Um, there's a difference in Sicario from the other ones, or at least I think there is. You know, uh, and also Sicario there is something about Sicario that is unlike Traffic, and that there's a frustration from the characters, and the war on drugs it seems to be frustrated. It's been 30 years of this war on drugs, and the productivity of drugs has not diminished, and the consumption of drugs has not diminished. So it's going in circle, and I think this movie is really talking about its time, where we are right now, just like Traffic was talking about when it was 15 years ago. And I think that's really interesting. What makes it different, I think that there is a sense of, especially from the character of, all the characters, there's a frustration, but especially from Josh Brolin's character and my character, there is a sense of frustration and going all out, pulling all the stops to make a difference in this war. And so, I think that there's a difference in this movie. And I also think that it's the one that plays more like a film noir, if you know the term. There's a thriller element to it that is really strong in the film, unlike Traffic or unlike Savages. You know.
You mentioned, how the war on drugs seems to be kind of frustrated now, 30 years, later, and just 15 years after the situation that Traffic was set in. Even though these films, most of these films are works of fiction, have they in any way informed any opinions you might have about the war on drugs and the way we're still sort of doggedly pursuing it?
Um, yeah, but yeah, to an extent, I mean, yes. You take a character like Alejandro in Sicario. To me, he represents the frustration of all the people, uh, good people on both sides of the border, on the North American side or the Mexican side, that have given their lives or have been hurt by this, or their families have been hurt by this war. And there's and there's a lot of people in Mexico that have been casualties of this war that we don't know much about here in America. And so the character informs you in some ways. The character is kind of like represents that, and it made it easy for me to understand him. Perhaps I don't agree with his tactics, but it made it easy for me to understand, because I know a little bit about about this war on drugs, and I've seen it progressed. Because I've been involved in movies that deal with this war, and I've made friends with many people who are on the front lines of this movie, on this war, and I'm, you know, and and they've informed me of what's up and what's going on a little bit, and but you know, but in the end, this movie's fiction, you know.
Well, I want to congratulate you on the film, you know, and the reviews, and wish you the best of luck with it. Thank you very much for talking to me today.
Oh, thank you, thank you. All right.